In this episode, I'm joined by Sam Shames, the co founder and COO of Ember Labs, an MIT born startup that's creating a whole new category of wearable tech: personal temperature regulation. Sam's journey is a masterclass in building hardware startups that survive, scale, and serve a deeply underserved audience. Hey, hi Sam. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Vishesh.
Awesome. Yeah, so we've been keeping touch since I think your Mass Challenge days. So it's been, I think, close to a decade now.
I know.
Time flies. But you wanna give a quick background on what does Ember do and why now is a good time, and what do you solve for your
Great.
customers?
Absolutely. So I'm Sam Shames, co-founder of Ember Labs, currently the chief operating officer. We started the company in 2014 when I was studying engineering at MIT, and we make a wearable device, the Ember Wave, that heats and cools to keep you comfortable. So it cools you when you're too warm, warms you when you're too cold, so you can stay in that optimal comfort zone and feel your best.
All right. And who's your, like, you are a D2C brand. What's a typical customer look like? Who's your sweet spot in terms of customers?
Our primary customer is a 51-year-old woman struggling with hot flashes and other symptoms of menopause, like sleep disturbances and stress. And at its core, those symptoms are an overactivation of the sympathetic nervous system, of the body's fight or flight response. And temperature is this unique neural pathway to the brain to help dampen down that response. So we're able to use our cooling and warming on this one spot to actually relax the body and help our customer with hot flashes, sleep, stress, and more.
Nice. And so you started as a different company, I believe, in MIT lab. What was the original use case and how did you guys eventually pivot?
And we started as a student project called Ristify. We didn't know that this was going to be a company, so we didn't put a lot of effort into the name. And what we originally were doing was trying to help keep ourselves comfortable in a lab space that was over air conditioned. So we were too cold and having to put on sweatshirts in June in Boston. And we thought, man, what if there's a better way? What if we could just heat and cool ourselves directly? And so that was the moment of inspiration for a wearable that could heat and cool. And it was only after we started telling people what we were working on that we started getting the question, does it work for hot flashes? And that helped us realize that there is a much bigger opportunity for the people who just struggle with temperature in their daily experience, whether that's women in menopause or people who have other thermoregulatory conditions like, say, MS, dysautonomia, or even people who just find like I run too hot or too cold, and it's just a big pain point. And so we like to say that we're helping the thermally underserved.
That's actually a really good use case. I now work remotely, but in general, offices are so cold. Sometimes my home office also is cold. Did that use case persist? Like, are you still selling to that segment, and does that work?
Yeah, I would say we do sell to the, call it, thermal comfort segment.
Right.
And it does work. One of the very first research studies we did was with the UC Berkeley Center for the Built Environment. And in that study, we demonstrated that the original Ember Wave, the V1, and this is the V2, and the V2 is even better, but just the V1 alone could make someone feel 5 degrees more comfortable. So if your office is at 72 degrees Fahrenheit and you find that too cold, by using the Ember Wave and warming, you could make it feel as if the office was 77. And if you used cooling, you could make it feel like it's 67. So that's a quite impactful difference that just this small device could make. And again, that was the V1, which was not even as effective as what's on the market today.
Right. Yeah, that's a 5. Wow, that's a big difference. Interesting. So 2014, 2015, back then there were a lot of hardware companies coming out. Yeah. Aura, one of the companies I've worked with, I think somewhere around that time frame. A lot of companies didn't survive. Some got bought. How has the journey been so far? And what helped you get through that period of sort of consolidation?
We were very fortunate. We're very fortunate to be here. The company actually turns 11
Right.
on Friday, February 28th.
Oh, wow.
And looking back, I believe that one of the reasons we've made it this far is just because we have really strong product market fit, that our customers just continued to pull the product onto the market because they have such strong pain points when it comes to their interactions with temperature. And so we were just consistently able to show, hey, people want this, people need this, there's strong sales. And, that was enough to secure funding rounds. On the other hand, we were really creating a new category.
Right.
And there was not a lot of comparables. There's not a sort of obvious market beyond what we were able to show. And so, that was probably a factor in terms of the sort of consolidation, that there wasn't anyone obviously looking to acquire our company or anything like that.
And so, how much of this was customer education, and in what shape or form? Any lessons there in terms of educating the customers for this category?
Yeah, we have had to invest in a significant amount of customer education. And ultimately that primarily takes the form of different types of media, whether that's earned media or our own content, our owned media or paid media. And what I think we've learned is, you've got to really look at the different segments in the market and, look at who are the early adopters, who's the early majority, who's the late majority, and, to whom are you really selling? As early on, people just sort of showed up and were ready to buy. And we said, oh my God, this is going to be easy. And then you realize that that's a small segment of the population that, wants to try new things, is very open. To really continue to drive market penetration, you need to adjust your strategy. And, that's been a moving goalpost. It's been something that we've just had to continue to evolve. Things that have generally worked for us have been, one, highlighting the customer reviews. They really are our best form of marketing.
Right.
Two has been media coverage. That's been really important for generating trust and helping people believe that, hey, this is credible. And then third, I think, has been actually getting distribution opportunities. So, when retailers like, say, Costco or Target are bringing on the product and selling it, and that really helps us to demonstrate credibility with the customer.
Right. So you are now also in stores, physical stores.
So we're primarily online. So the retailers I just listed are all online. We are in a couple physical stores. So we're in Smart Tech, in Selfridges in London, and then we're also in a couple Nebraska Furniture Mart locations. So we're early there. We are trying to expand, and it comes down to, again, the sort of customer education piece, because someone, when they see the product on the shelf, they need to know what it is and be looking for it. So we need to create that demand out of the store, or the merchandising and display in the store itself needs to provide that education. And so those are some of the challenges that we're working through with our distribution partner.
Interesting. And you intend to stay D2C?
So the D2C will always be a big channel for us. We definitely see opportunities to go to sort of B2B channels as well. I think especially with the new business model we've launched, that's a subscription model, similar to, say, Whoop. That's opening up new distribution channels where businesses may offer this as an employee benefit or things like that, where the pricing is sort of a per member per month pricing that businesses are sort of more comfortable paying for things on an ongoing basis than buying hardware and owning that.
Right. And so you said the early traction was almost magical in terms of the number of people that were coming in and kind of buying. At the same time, I think some of that traction was because of Kickstarter. How was that experience running a Kickstarter campaign, and was that during Mass Challenge or after?
It was after Mass Challenge. Maybe just talking briefly about the timeline at a high level to set some context for the Kickstarter. We started working on what became the company in the summer of 2013 through a prototyping contest at MIT. We won that prototyping contest in October 2013. And we thought, wow, this is amazing. We got emails from people all over the world saying, when can I buy this? And temperature is the biggest pain point in my life. And so we said, okay, great. We're going to, launch the product. How do you launch a product? Of course, you do it on Kickstarter. We didn't know what we didn't know. And so we thought it was going to take 6 months to launch the product. It actually took 4 years. So we launched our Kickstarter in October 2017 after 4 years of doing really 3 activities. First was primary market research, understanding the market and who was our customer. Second was understanding the science. Why is it that just changing the temperature of this one spot has an overall effect, even though it's not changing your core body temperature?
Right.
And then third was actually iterative prototyping. So building prototypes, giving it to people to try, collecting feedback. And that was really, kind of a couple-year process in and of itself. By the fall of 2017, we had our design done, we started manufacturing, and we were ready to launch on Kickstarter. And it really was a magical experience. Our goal was to sell $100,000. We ended up hitting that goal within the first couple hours of our campaign. And over the 30-day campaign, we sold $630,000 worth of product. So we had over 2,500 backers. It was an incredible moment for the company, for my co-founders and I, and really for everyone who believed in us, including our early backers. These were folks who in some cases had emailed us back in 2013 saying temperature was a pain point in their life, who we had then asked to try early prototypes and whose feedback had been instrumental in our design. So ultimately getting to launch the product was just, it was very special.
Right. And so between the actual backers signing up to them getting the product, they had to wait for a couple of years?
No. So yeah, most Kickstarters were like that. We really wanted to do things differently. And so most Kickstarters, you have a design, you launch on Kickstarter, then you start manufacturing, you run into all the manufacturing delays. And so you're a year late between when you say you're going to deliver and when you will deliver. We did things differently, which was after we finished the design, we started working with our manufacturer and we tried to build our sample units. We failed, made some design changes, tried to build again, failed. And only on the third try were we successful with the design changes. At that point, we said, okay, now we know we can make this design. We know we can manufacture it. We know what it's going to cost. Now let's launch the Kickstarter. So because of that, we were actually able to deliver our Kickstarter unit 6 months early. So our Kickstarter was in October of 2017. We shipped out our first units in December of 2017, and we finished shipping all of our Kickstarter units by March of 2018. So within 6 months. And that was 6 months earlier than we promised. We told everyone you're going to have your units by basically September of 2018, and in fact it was March. So that's something we're very proud of.
This first batch was also with your manufacturing partner. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you ended up getting a manufacturing partner?
Yeah. So obviously hardware ultimately requires putting physical atoms together, and that's very challenging. It's just very different than software. And so one of the very early pieces of advice we got was that you need to have your manufacturing partner selected when you're starting your design, because you can't design in a vacuum and you're going to need their input. And ultimately, unless they sign off and say, we can make this and we can make this at a cost that's acceptable, you don't have a product. Right. So we were very fortunate to find our manufacturing partner through the MIT network. We had reached out to other entrepreneurs and said, hey, we're looking for a recommendation. And that partner has been fantastic. So we've been working with them since 2016, call it tier 2 or tier 3 manufacturer based in the Shenzhen region of China. And, what's been most valuable has just been their desire and commitment to do business with us, because it's risky for manufacturers to work with startups. The volume may not be there. Right. There's a lot of costs up front starting to work with them. And, they show that they believed in the product. They were hungry for our business. They ultimately became a strategic investor taking a minority position.
Nice.
That laid the foundation for a very positive relationship. And, there have been many challenges throughout the period between COVID, between the global supply chain crisis. And, at the same time, we've been very fortunate to really, leverage their expertise and skills as we've ramped production between our two generations of product, produced over 200,000 devices.
Awesome. Yeah. When you initially started with them, did you have to, given the volumes were low, how was the setup? How easy is it to get someone to, as a startup, commit to low volumes?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the relationship, and do you have, how did you meet them? How committed are you to the relationship? So, for example, we were fortunate that we had strong introductions through MIT folks, and we were able to bring a lot of credibility to the table. We also had to really invest in the relationship. So we visited the factory, convinced the management that we were serious. We were able to demonstrate a track record of raising capital. That said, there's certainly caution, and that's reflected in initial payment terms, initial minimum order quantities. But ultimately, you need to see that there's a shared give and take, that both parties stretching a bit. You may be, as a startup, ordering more than you want, but they may also be lowering their minimum order quantity compared to what they would quote a larger firm.
Right. Outside the Kickstarter demand, did you have to seed some giveaways and like give away free product to kind of do some education, or it was always a sales-led education?
So we definitely gave some units to the press. So we got some good press coverage. And in 2017, I would say influencer marketing was just not matured to where it is today. So that wasn't as big a part of our playbook back then. Today it's a big piece. And so we definitely are donating units regularly to content creators and influencers. That's sort of an ongoing marketing expense. From a customer standpoint, it's a little bit less frequent, I would say, than maybe some other brands.
Right. Is there still need for, can influencers reach out to you? Is there a partnership page that we can direct them to?
Yeah, absolutely. They can email partnerships@emberlabs.com, and our marketing team will be in touch. If you've got a good following and you're interested in promoting the product, we would love to connect with you.
And so there has been a recent momentum shift. You said you switched your model from a one-time sale to a subscription. I have experienced that with some of the Aura users I know. How was the shift taken by existing customers, and what made you change to that model?
So we had significant success selling devices. We had sold over 200,000 devices. We've done over $50 million in revenue. And yet we saw that the value creation for the customer compared to the value capture for us as a business was misaligned to the point where it was making it difficult to see the pathway to profitability and to just continue to make the investments that we wanted to make for our customers. The customers are using the product for 5 to 6 hours a day. They're using the device for 2, 3, 4 years. And so we wondered, is there a way that we can better align the value that we're delivering to customers on an ongoing basis with the value that we're able to capture as what we saw over the last couple of years was how Whoop and Aura had really demonstrated the playbook for these connected hardware devices in a way that, was not quite as clear when we launched the second generation device in 2021. And so we thought, okay, let's see what does that look like for us. And we wanted to be mindful of the fact that, not every customer wants to do a subscription. Some people just want to buy and own devices. We don't necessarily have the ecosystem on the software side that those companies do yet. And so how do we kind of start small? And so we decided to start with just a hardware subscription where effectively you're renting the device, and we price that at $20 a month, very affordable monthly price. You can cancel any time and send back the device. And what we saw was just an incredible market response. We launched that model as what we call the Embership subscription in Q2 of 2024. And over the next 8 months, we saw it go from 0 to 4 million in ARR with over 15,000 active subscribers. Customers were very hungry for this model. We saw on our website that anywhere from 60 to 80% of customers were choosing the subscription over the device sale. We still do sell the device. You can buy it for $299. That gives you access to all the software. You own it. You can get it through our website or through our channel partners. But
Right.
if you prefer to have a lower monthly payment, if you prefer to have flexibility, if you want to have a new device every 2 years, you can be a subscriber instead. And that has been very successful. It's really transformed the revenue model. It's improved our gross margins. It's given us stable cash flows and revenue streams that make it easier to do our planning and investments. And the retention has been excellent. Customers are really valuing the subscription, and that we're seeing that in terms of the lifetime values.
And so since the switch, how much did you say is the conversion delta between a one-time purchase versus a...
So we see on emberlabs.com about 70 to 80% of customers are choosing the subscription. So there's significantly stronger demand on the subscription side.
And are these devices, just to understand the model better, are these devices insured by you, or how does it work when you subscribe hardware? Because hardware can
Yeah,
get
so
damaged as well, right?
it's a lifetime warranty. So if you
Right.
buy it, you just have a 1 year warranty. But if you're a subscriber, we're going to make sure you always have a working device. All we ask is when you cancel, or if you cancel, you send it back so that we can refurbish it. And we can offer you either a refurbished or a new device. So we can give someone choice when it comes to what type of device they get based on how much they're willing to pay on that ongoing monthly basis.
And what about damages?
So we're covering most damage there. I mean, obviously it depends. As long as the customer is willing to pay their subscription, we can be pretty flexible. Certainly, if there's a sort of a pattern of damage, and at a certain point, we might have to say, "Hey, you're no longer eligible for this." But that hasn't really been an issue until up until now, and hopefully in the future as well. Knock on wood.
You have a form factor that is on the wrist.
Mm-hmm.
How did you arrive at that choice? Were you
So
planning to do something before outside wrist, or?
we were always interested in the wrist. There was the old sort of wives' tale that we heard when we were getting started, which is if you're too hot, you run your wrist under cold water. So we knew the wrist was a really thermally sensitive area, and that, anecdotally, if you change the temperature of the wrist, it has a whole body effect. We later understood the science of actually the thermoreceptor nerve endings on your skin and how changing their temperature impacts your overall well-being. So that was a factor. And second, it was, well, this is a completely new concept. It's a new category of product. People are willing to try things. What's the simplest space that someone might try something new? And we thought that was the wrist. That was an easier sell than the chest or the back of the neck or the ankle or the waist.
Right, makes sense. Timing wise, I think you just switched to a different model roughly less than a year ago, and now you're seeing this big uptick. At the same time, we have this massive AI wave of SaaS. Given you've been in the hardware space, how much of in terms of raising money and traction, how much are you dealing with the AI noise, and has that helped you versus slowed you down?
Yeah, it's a thoughtful question. So we've been working on AI to predict hot flashes for a couple of years now. When we started, we might have called it machine learning, but of course now we have to call it AI.
Yeah.
Where on the one hand, we're not maybe as directly working on AI as other startups, but on the other hand, there's huge opportunities to leverage AI for what we're doing. We're working on a AI coach that will help guide you about when to use the different heating and cooling modes to stay in that optimal temperature. I've heard Seth Godin say it really well, which is, sort of using AI in a company is going to become like using electricity. It's just like something every company uses, right? You're not an electricity company, you're just a company. So we're kind of thinking more about what does AI let us do for our customer that maybe we couldn't do a couple years ago? And then how does AI let us as a business operate more efficiently? So, in that sense, it's been quite valuable. We haven't necessarily been able to directly capitalize it from a sort of a funding perspective.
It does add some defensibility as a hardware company. Like if you look at the last 3 to 6 months, there has been a massive shift in how many investors thought foundational models were going to have immense moat. And now suddenly you have DeepSeek and all these new models popping up that are doing it much cheaper. And the application layer has become the new kind of, I would say, area where you might have a lot more moat than foundational model. But hardware takes it to another level almost because it's not easy to manufacture. In terms of defensibility, how has starting with the hardware and not having a cloud-based solution for a while been a challenge?
Yeah, I agree with your overall perspective on the market that DeepSeek and maybe even the Llama models have shown that a lot of the um, value in AI is not necessarily in the foundation models themselves. It's going to be how do you leverage them. That's ultimately good for the ecosystem if the actual inference cost is a lot cheaper or can be done locally. I think we're seeing that it's significantly reducing the barriers for making custom software, making your own software. And so that definitely reduces the moats of software companies. And so hardware does become correspondingly more valuable, right? It's obviously more capital intensive, it's more difficult. And if you can figure out that integration, there's a huge amount of value. In addition, customers I would say really have a different level of attachment and engagement with hardware products. That when you're buying something, especially like a wearable, but even really any consumer electronic device that you're physically owning, you have that opportunity to build that much of a stronger tie and ultimately that much of a stronger customer lifetime value.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, that's where shifting to this subscription model has been transformative because it's really helped us see that retention, that ongoing investment in our customers is now directly tied to revenue in a way it wasn't previously. When we were just selling devices, everything after the sale was a cost center.
Right.
And now it's a revenue center. And so now we're just much more incentivized to continue the software development, to launch new mobile app features, and to just really try to deliver value for the customer because it just is directly tied to our own economics and again the alignment of the value creation and value capture.
And so before the switch, you had device was still connected to the cloud and users had cloud-based solution?
Yeah, they had a mobile app they could use to change different modes and track their usage, but it just we always had a lot of ideas for the mobile app and it was really hard to justify the investments because there was no revenue coming in from it.
Yeah, makes sense. In your case, you started from a research lab as well. Getting that initial traction and validation early on, did that help with, the funding and some of these initial costs? Was the initial funding enough for you to kind of cover those, or did you cover it from somewhere else?
Yeah, so our founding team was all material scientists at MIT. In some ways, that was not the ideal founding team because we didn't have a software person who could, write the firmware. We didn't have a printed circuit board designer. We didn't have a CAD designer. So we had to, learn some stuff ourselves, but then also work with lots of contractors. At the same time, we really worked well together. We had a lot of fun, and that's really important in those early days. We started out with just the money we won from the prototyping contest. That was $10,000. At that point, all we were really doing was sort of building prototypes and doing primary market research. We were still students at MIT as well, so that was helpful. We were not trying to do full time. Then we did a summer prototyping contest at MIT, or a summer accelerator at MIT, got some more non-dilutive funding there. We won another contest. So through 2014, we were just kind of funding the company based on these contests. We paid ourselves $2,000 a month once we graduated. That was our salaries. And then 2015, we were able to get some sort of initial friends and family investments, as well as a small investment from Intel Capital that continued to fund the prototype development. And then, by the end of 2015, we had done multiple hundred interviews with potential users. So we really had a primary market research. We knew who our customer was, and we had built enough prototypes that we gave them to someone for a field trial for 2 weeks. And at the end of that, we said, hey, do you want to buy this? And, enough of them said yes. That was our traction, was saying, okay, hey, here's the prototypes we've made. And here's basically people who tried it saying, I'm ready to buy this. And so now we need to raise money to make the commercial version. And so we were able to raise that $500,000 in 2016. And that was what we used to actually design the what eventually became the Gen 1 Ember Wave.
Right. Wow. And so I actually didn't realize. So the founding team was all a material science background.
Yeah.
So no sales, no marketing.
Nope. Yeah, we hired those eventually as we needed them. We obviously tried to learn ourselves along the way, but early on in 20 like 14, 15, 16, there really wasn't a lot of sales and marketing to do. It was just, the biggest risk was, can we actually make a product? We were able to show, hey, there's a market here. We were able to do the customer research. We were able to prove demand. And from that, yeah, we were able to demonstrate that, that if we could build the product, we'd be able to sell it. After we launched the product in 2017 and after we fulfilled the Kickstarter demand in 2018, at that point, the focus really needed to shift to sales and marketing and shift to building a business. Right. And that was when my co-founders and I recruited an external CEO. We looked around the table and we said, hey, we're engineers. Right. We've never done business before. Let's see if we can find someone who has, and that will significantly increase our probability of success. And so we worked with an executive recruiter, interviewed multiple dozens of candidates, and we found Elizabeth Gazda, and she's been the CEO since 2018 and has just completely helped us get to where we are today.
So you recruited a CEO from outside. Was it after a funding round?
It was kind of in between funding rounds. So credit to Liz. When she joined the company, we had maybe 3 months of runway left. One of the first things she had to do when she joined in August 2018 was help us raise a bridge round. She was ultimately able to help us raise about $1 billion, and that got us through to the point where we could show enough growth with the Gen 1 device, and in doing so, ultimately raise our next financing round. So she was just instrumental in saving the company many times, and bringing her on was just one of the best decisions we made.
As a founding team, so you said you went to an executive recruiter, but what do you look for in a CEO who's going to replace the founding team?
I think the most important thing for us was sort of chemistry, was saying, right. Hey, are we going to work well together? Can we have difficult conversations? Do we feel supported? Obviously there was do you have the background and the skill set? But that's partially where the executive recruiter was able to be a filter. So a big piece for us was just the fit. Was, hey, how well does this person fit with our culture? We did a homework exercise, so that was able to kind of better assess some of the key business questions we had. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where when you meet the right person, you just kind of know and feel it. And we're really fortunate that we met Elizabeth late enough into the process where we interviewed and spoken with many other candidates. And so when we met her, it's like, wow, this person really feels like, the right person. And, that was fantastic. That was just to find her. We didn't sort of realize how unique what we were doing was at the time. We were really fortunate that our board very wisely suggested, hey, you guys should go look to see if you could bring in an outside CEO. Right. And obviously we found the right person.
Yeah, that's lucky. And so did you guys have a window where you were going to test it out, or it was a done decision when you brought her on?
I mean, we certainly felt like a done decision. Obviously there's, vesting with options, and if it didn't work out, we could have made a change, but it was obvious within a couple of weeks that she was the right person. I mean, just the energy she brought in, the clarity she helped us reach, the ways in which she was able to help mentor and coach my co-founders and I. It was just so clear that she was going to help transform the business. And, when she joined, we had sold a couple thousand devices. Today, we've sold over 200,000. We had raised a couple $1 million. Today, we've raised, over $60 million.
And so for a product like this, engineering is critical. Having a good product that solves a problem is critical. But I think after a certain point, and probably the point where you've reached, marketing becomes a really important driving force. What are some of the marketing changes you've made in the last 6-7 months moving to this new model? And any lessons there for people who are trying to scale their business?
Yeah, I completely agree that marketing becomes the critical path at a certain point. You can make the most amazing product, but if no one knows about it, the business is ultimately not going to grow. as engineers, you like to think often you don't need marketing, or you can just talk about the product benefits or the features, even maybe not even the benefits, just talk about, hey, it, has these specs, and people are going to say, wow, but that's not how people think. Ultimately you have to tell a story about, where someone is today and where they could be with this product, and, let them fill in the details. And that's really hard. I think, what we've done differently in the past sort of 8 months is, one, just the subscription pricing has helped us, because $299 is a highly considered purchase. $20 a month where you can cancel, that's just a lot easier to say, okay, hey, I'll try this. Why not? If I'm liking it, I'll keep paying. If not, I'll cancel. The second piece is in really embracing experimentation. So we used to, do 1 or 2 big photo shoots a year and cut a couple commercial, a couple ads, and then we'd run those. Now we're getting, 3 or 4 new pieces of creative every week and testing those out. And so you have, multiple dozens of different creative assets running at any given time. And you're, sort of leveraging the Meta algorithm or the other platform's algorithm to see what's performing best. We're working with different UGC creators. So, that's been a really big shift, is just sort of saying, hey, you have to just refresh your content much more quickly. And instead of a couple big expensive productions, go with smaller ongoing things. But that also reflects that the cost of production has come way down, especially if you're saying, hey, what we want as a deliverable is a selfie style video, and something that looks like what you or I would post on Instagram or TikTok.
Right. And so a lot of the UGC is like influencer led or maybe from outside. How much of the other content is you're doing in-house versus contracting it out?
We're doing mostly contracted out. I think there's an opportunity to do more in-house content. I see all the trends around founder-led marketing, and I feel like it's something I should be doing more of. And then, I'm also finding it very difficult to actually get started. And, there's just, say, a fear of sort of putting yourself out there and of looking dumb. And, what do I have to say? I think the reality is everyone probably feels that way to some extent. And it's, are you willing to step outside of your comfort zone? So that's something that I'd like to be doing more of, and hope to be doing more of in the coming months.
And so this, how are you sourcing these, like the outside content or the UGC content? Are there lessons in how to source these, and how much do they require in terms of money?
Yeah, we work with an agency. So, the agency ultimately has a pretty broad network, and then we give them specifications, sort of what we're looking for, and then we are kind of down selecting from a list. So that's sort of the broad process. Our marketing team, they're sort of leading those efforts. Then we're fortunate that, once we find someone who we like, we try to stick with them. And I think that's a nice lesson, is, to keep building those relationships. If someone's working, to use them multiple times, they'll know the product better. They'll know you guys better, know the messaging. So, can you find those repeat creators?
Any advice for founders who want to scale a hardware business? What are some of the things that you would do differently given your decade-long journey?
Yeah, I think, thinking about the business model earlier, we would be in a very different place today if we had launched our recurring revenue more than just a year ago. So, that is absolutely critical. I think forecasting is really, really challenging, because you ultimately need to buy inventory, and there's lead times there. And so you're trying to, make an educated guess around inventory months ahead of time. And if you have too much, that's a risk to your cash balance. If you have too little and sell out, you're losing revenue. So that's, not easy, but really, really important. I think most of all, though, it comes down to listening to your customer and how do you create these loops. And ultimately, it's a multi-year process to design new versions of the hardware. So how do you make it so that in between hardware cycles, you can iterate on the product, whether that's through software and mobile app features or things like that? How do you make it so you can actually improve the hardware or improve the product and the customer experience? So that's really critical. And can you shorten those feedback loops so you're really going through many learning cycles on the marketing, on the products, on the unboxing? If you can do that effectively, you're going to iterate that more and more, because one of the best books on the hardware journey is Build by Tony Fadell. who co-founded Nest and created the iPod. And he talks about how typically to nail a hardware product takes 3 generations. And you don't necessarily have the luxury of getting to build 3 generations. You have to show that Gen 1 has enough success to make the Gen 2, Gen 2 has enough success to get to Gen 3. And that means really thinking about what are the key milestones that you need to show with each generation of product. How do you show that product market fit's improving and that ultimately there's a path to making outside profits? So, that book is really worth a read, and is a really, really good roadmap for hardware companies.
Yeah, I'll add that to the show notes. Yeah, thanks for the recommendation. I think Tesla does this iterating faster, and the software component almost acting as an update.
Yeah.
So yeah, that could be a way to kind of ship software update instead of a hardware update. You said,
Yep.
How long does the hardware update typically take for you to?
Bringing a new hardware product to market is going to take, if you're the fastest possible, will be a year, and it could be 2 years. 15 to 18 months might be a good average. So it's a multiple year process, because if you're a startup, you've finished 1 generation, you typically don't have the resources to start the second right away. You're going to have to then launch the product, have 6 months, 9 months, a year's worth of sales data, and then start. You got to assume it's going to be multiple years before a next generation's on the market. And you also want to actually learn from the field, right? You want to actually see how are customers using this, what are the failure modes, what things are people doing well, so that can inform your next generation design.
Yeah, makes sense. And so, where can people find more about Embr? Where can people follow you or reach out to you?
So you can follow Embr at emberlabs.com or the product emberwave.com. And the best place to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn. I'm Sam Shames on LinkedIn, so can follow me there. I'm trying to be better about learning in public and building in public and sharing what I'm doing. So yeah, I'll be having more to say in the coming days, weeks, and months.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing the journey. It's an interesting time and exciting time for you guys. I wish you all the best. And thanks for joining me here on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. See you in the next episode.